So you go on dates with people you don't know their name.
Yeah,
Like the whole date, you're just like,
there's
man.
a lot in life, I mean, and I hate that, like, sometimes I tell myself, oh, it's because, like, I meet a lot of people in my life, and in my days now I'm, like, absorbed in conversation with so many people, but I feel like that's not a good thing to say either.
No.
So, and especially when it comes to dates, but yeah, there's a period of time where I feel like that's not important to me. Like, I feel like the name, it should be important, but it's kind of like the least interesting thing about the person. So,
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do know what you're saying. However, it is like really demoralizing. At the end of a date, you're like, oh, that went really well. And they're like, what's your name again? You're like, we just spent 2 hours together.
Yeah, I mean, or I'm like getting someone else's number by the end of it. That was happening a bit. Where
What do you mean?
I feel like I was on this string of dates where, someone would come up to someone or to us and they would say something like, why are you with him? Like, she's better than you. Yeah. Or like,
that's so crazy.
Or a guy would go to the bathroom and one of like the guy host or someone in the restaurant would come up and we'd start talking and it would go toward my podcast. And it didn't seem like it was like a date situation, but by the time I was leaving, they'd ask for my number in front of the guy for the podcast. And and whereas like I'm going to show up and say yes to those moments.
Yeah.
I think the guys would look at me, or I was on a date and it was for the breakup coaching, and they'd look at me like, oh, she's collecting numbers to go on dates with guys in front of me, where it was like, hey, like, I do have a platform and I do connect with people, and I'm not going to turn that side of me off just because I'm on a first date with someone that I've only known for an hour and a half. Like, this is my life and it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right now.
Totally understand. I mean, comedians have the same problem, and it doesn't get better with like being in a relationship. It does a little bit, but there's always that little bit of like I'm always meeting people, men, women, whatever out there. And so, if I'm at a comedy club and I'm networking, for lack of a better word, and there's like, oh, this girl's really good, she's been on late night, oh yeah, I was talking with her, like I want to be buddies with her, because it's always good to have more connections or whatever. Even in like stable relationships, they're kind of like, okay, really, like, because they don't see that side of my life. Like the whole time that I'm out at a comedy club talking to all these people, they're thinking like, what's going on there?
Yeah, which to me is like, it really shows that someone lacks trust. And whether it's like longer in a relationship and it's telling me that someone lacks trust in us, or if it's me, or if it's their own baggage, but if it's me that they're lacking trust in, they really don't see me at all. They don't see who I am. Because I can give my attention away to a ton of people. Like, that is what I do. That is also what I love. I love people. But if I'm selecting someone to be with, that's like a very conscious choice, and it's a different sort of attention. I feel like they should be proud that they're the one that I end up with at night, but other people during the day that I'm enthused about are not the people I'm choosing, you know?
Yeah. And no, that is a good point. I feel like on a first date, you're never going to have that level of trust. But in a relationship, I do think you're...
But I just feel like if it's starting now, like one of my favorite quotes is by Maya Angelou, and it says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And... maybe it's the breakup coaching, maybe it's the podcast, maybe it's just throughout my days hearing people's stories because of what I do. But I feel like I'm so much sooner now to pick up on those things with people, that when they say things like that, or it seems like they need me to be smaller with them, I'm very much like, well, this is the smallest I'm going to be. And if this is already too much for you, it won't work with us. I think I've just seen so much at this point where, the people I called into my life, they were big, fans, or from the outside, and I'm sure it happens as a comedian, people are, they love the idea of what you do and what it takes to be someone like you, and what it would be like on the receiving end to be like you and get attention. But to be with someone like that... It's
overrated. No, I'm kidding. Go on.
No, but like, to be with someone like that, I think... ask something of them. And it can be so uncomfortable that they end up trying to want you to be smaller so they don't have to deal with that discomfort.
Interesting. Yeah, and it takes I think it takes a special type of person to be able to put up with that. like it's funny you say that, because I was actually just talking with one of my buddies from back home. He was my college roommate, like very good friend, and we were talking about and he's been married for years. He's had one girlfriend, and he like made her his wife type deal. I know, yeah. So like he's in no place to be giving me advice, but at the maybe
he has advice about soulmates.
I'm sure, yeah. No, I'm sure he's got like pieces of advice, but that's exactly what we were talking about, because he was like, yeah, no, really, all you got to find is like someone you like hanging out with, and then someone that also respects when you need space, and that's it. And I was like, okay, I agree with those two things. However, I am a much more high maintenance individual than you are.
How so?
Like, well, it's just the lifestyle that I live, right?
Why is
like,
it high maintenance? That's so interesting. What an interesting choice.
I don't have a lot of free time.
Okay.
Because I still have a day job.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, right after work I'm going to do this podcast. And then I'm going to go to the comedy club. And I'm going to be there till 1 a.m.
Right.
I have a late sleep schedule. Like, I have been with people before that want to go to bed by 9:30 every night. And it's like...
nothing seems more suffocating and depressing.
It was fine. Like, the issue... I didn't have the issue with it. The issue is, like, they would get mad...
if you didn't go to sleep with them at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they would, like, have to stay up way later than they wanted to, and then they're in a bad mood.
Right.
And so it was just, like... That's kind of what I mean is, like, I live... a very specific lifestyle, and it eliminates a lot of different people where like he just stays at home. He's got a couple of dogs. He plays video games. Like, he wakes up when he wants to. He goes to bed when he wants to, but it's the same routine every night. So like him having those two requirements is like really all he needs, because he doesn't really go out. He's not chasing some passion, and he's happy. I'm not shitting on him, but
the friend.
Yeah, my friend. Right.
I was like, are these guys you're dating?
Yeah,
I was like, I thought you switched over and like were revealing something. I'm like, oh my God, what?
No. My friend is trying to give me advice.
Yeah, well, but
so
that's
he wasn't
a lot,
wrong. He just didn't have the whole
but
picture.
I think a lot of people think like that. It's almost like they're suggesting that in order to find love and find that person you're going to be with, your lifestyle needs to change. And if your lifestyle, if you just like simplified it and just, paid attention to what's important, just keep your life more simple and kind of have, I don't know if it's called like the status quo life, kind of what we expect. It's like, it's about family. It's not about being out there and chasing things. It's about being on schedule together. I agree. I'm not in that place either. And I feel like when I've been with guys that are more structured in that way, there's a part that comes out of me where I feel like ashamed, like, am I not adulting enough? Should I be adulting like them? And am I just like, people say like a free spirit, like, up at night, like thinking about my thoughts or getting connected to myself? And can people really pay attention to those details? And they can almost make it seem like it's flawed or so out there. You're not ready for love yet. Chelsea, do you know what you want? And it's just,
I mean, yeah.
Or it's like as if it's so selfish.
Yeah. And like, I guess I don't know completely how to wrap my head around it, because part of me does think it is a little selfish.
Yeah.
But also I think like, it's I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, if I'm happy with the way that I'm living my life and I'm not really harming others, then like other people can fit into it. Or if they don't want to fit into it, then it's kind of like, there's something to be said for coming into a relationship with who you are and not like pretending like you're going to change so you could fit with someone else.
I know it's so many people do. Like, that's the strategy. And
yeah.
That's the heartbreak for them in the end. I think that not coming in and, being a chameleon and not kind of deluding yourself into thinking that eventually, your lifestyle, someone will change what they're doing to match you. I think it's how you end up, I guess, as they'd say, alone. Alone
as
for
they
longer.
Would say, alone. Lonely, a piece of shit.
I'm not lonely. I mean, I feel like the least lonely that I've ever felt in my life, but I'm definitely romantically the most alone that I've been. And so it's really fascinating in that sense, like the more happy I've been with myself. That's the craziest thing. When I was sad and more reaching in my life for everything I didn't have, that was such an easier time for me to get into relationships. And as I've gotten, so much happier and so much, more alive in my life and less dependent on one person, I feel like it's been harder to get in a relationship. It's wild. It's like I left my last relationship so in love with him, and I just felt like, and happier, and I was coming into a consistency of self and of happiness, and I felt like I needed to really see where that would take me. I needed to lead my own life. I knew I would never move to this small town where he lived. I was being realistic for both of us. I left him, him wanting to lead my own life and feeling like it was going to take me a while to fall in love again, to match what we had. He had 2 kids. I felt like what it was to be maternal and to like have this family and a relationship that wasn't selfish. And yet, in coming into myself and becoming finally secure in so many more, ways, and feeling like I could really offer someone like an honest love, in a way I have so much more going for me. I haven't been in a relationship since that, like really in a relationship. I've dated. So it's kind of crazy. It's like, damn, when I was more insecure and love was the priority because I was so insecure with my life, I was able to be in love, which from the outside, a lot of people see that as the success. Oh, look, she's in love. She's chasing something, she really has something going for her. Her life is moving somewhere. That's kind of the illusion, I think, from the outside. My life was going kind of nowhere fast when I was in the wrong relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the way you put that, the wrong relationship, is kind of the key there, like what we were talking earlier about. Now that you do feel more comfortable in yourself, it's not that you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't sound like you're shut off to new relationships. It's more that you're going to be pickier about it because you have a better relationship with yourself. Like, you're not filling gaps in your own like personality or like loneliness with someone else. You're trying to be additive with your relationships. No?
Totally. And I feel like, in a way, I hate this word, but I guess I kind of was settling in the past. I mean, I'm so grateful for every man that was in my life. I mean,
they all sucked. You heard it here first. They were all terrible.
I know, it probably seems like it. But I really, I feel like I credit them for who I've become and for also never judging me when I was in bad places in my life. I mean, these were men that chose me when I felt like I was in a really low state, and I was really ashamed of the condition I was in, and they never judged me. So I think that they were just an indication of where I was at in my life, who I was. I do think I was attracting maybe people that were more of my frequency, but the thing I wasn't being honest about, and I was using them, is that I was using them when I was feeling isolated in my life. And I felt like having that would give me the strength then to go make something of myself and be secure and act on my dreams. And it did the opposite. So I think that's what I'm aware of, is like, I'm not going to bring someone in my life wrongly thinking that they're going to, make me feel more confident, or they're going to give me direction. And I also see further out. I see that, like, I don't feel like I can afford or keep up this act of being with like the wrong person, in the sense of the future. I'm not just like, I'm living in the now for myself. I don't want to just like live in the now with a guy and call it love, but realistically know that I would never make the choices that he wants to make in life for our future. So that's what's kind of hard. I can see where I feel like very intuitive. I always have. I've really felt intuitive about the people I meet and the relationships I have, and like that my gut is right. And so I'll have these senses of things that will tell me this person and I aren't going to be a match for long. Yeah. And so I kind of see further out, and I make decisions faster in the present.
Interesting. So we got right into it. We didn't even really do any sort of an introduction, but you do, for your like part of what you do, you podcast, is you are a breakup coach, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So everything that you just outlined, how do you make other people see that, right? Because I think it's one thing to internally look at how you've lived your life and retroactively look back at the relationships and say like, oh, well, I was using him to fill this hole that I thought was there, and I was using this person to fill this other hole I thought was there. But like, it strikes me as something that you have to feel, and not, because everyone can look at their relationship logically and go like, well, that's not the best, but then they end up staying with someone, or they break up with them and maybe they shouldn't. Like, how do you bring someone around to the idea where they start to look at themselves inwardly like you're doing, and to help them move forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. It's like, I think logic is, it's not sexy. It doesn't make it romantic. It ends the fantasy much sooner.
It is to some people. I know a lot of computer programmers, they are very turned on by logic.
Yeah, and if women really want to catch a man's attention, I mean, they should be more logical about things, right?
I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah, so I've had to kind of think like a man in more ways.
I'm sorry.
I mean, people call me a relationship realist. I think that's the man in me. I think that, it is about going to the feelings. So I think that sometimes women, especially, will kind of talk further out. Like, so the feelings that they're having about the dynamic they're in, this love that they think they have, is further out. The idea of like, this is the one, and this person is going to show up for me like this, and I'm eventually going to have this. It's like they're feeling outwardly, right? But inwardly, it's about saying like, I mean, there's this anxiety. Like, what is this feeling you're having? You're coming to me with what? Is it with love, or is it with anxiety? So it's having them like be more honest with themselves about what they're feeling, because the logical part, or the compassionate part too, will come up with excuses and reasons and ways to validate experiences that they're having that are making them feel less than or uncomfortable, or they're not actually getting closer to what they want, or all these things, that it's not a match. And so it's about that. It's about kind of helping them see more clearly, in many ways, the things that they're complaining about, like the sadness that they have. A lot of women come to me differently than men, but a lot of women come to me with anger, and the anger is so outwardly focused. And it's like, okay, maybe it is all outward. Maybe it is all that person. Maybe it is all the circumstance. So empower yourself and look inwardly and create a different solution for yourself. Let them go. If it's an outward thing and someone's not listening to you, and no matter what you do, then like, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Stop fighting against yourself. I think like, and it was something I experienced. I never have been an angry person. And then there was these, the relationship that I was in that, really turned me into a breakup coach, or someone that wanted to be that, was I stayed so long. I was denying so many of the feelings. I was thinking about them and what they needed and how I could change for, let's go back to the beginning. That's such a known thing. Let's go back. In the beginning, we were passionate. In the beginning, we had chemistry. In the beginning, they paid attention to me. So I was so frustrated by coming to someone and outwardly showing them that. I remember becoming so angry. And this one time where I like leaped out of myself and to the guy I was with, and kind of like I wanted to like shake him, like wake up.
Yeah.
But it was really like, and I remember asking him, were you afraid of me? And he was like, laughed, just like, look at you, you're like so tiny, like how could I be afraid of you? But I remember him flinching when he saw me like come at, yeah. And I didn't believe him. And even the fact that I had to ask was like the answer. Again, like, stop asking outwardly. Did that scare you? It scared me.
Right.
That I would be an expression of that in a loving relationship. And so, yeah, it's like empower yourself to leave. And that's kind of what I try to do. It's being a breakup coach, it's hard. It's for me, it comes from like a really loving place and wanting to be with people in, their most fragile states and in the support of love, but, people want fast, what is it called?
Quick fixes?
Quick fixes.
I got you.
I'm like so dyslexic in life and always as I get older. And, and they also like, you can kind of be the bad guy too. So it's about, being direct with people because they can't be direct with themselves, and there are a lot of people come to, you know, the relationships and breakups with avoidance. So to speak with them in a way that says, hey, nothing needs to happen now, but let's work on you coming into, you know, clarity. You know, that's the biggest thing. You know, I don't want to like encourage people to do something because I think they should.
Okay.
That's big.
That's big. I think that's a good key to, like, you know. So I have two questions. I can't decide which one I want to ask first. So you said that women come in and they're more outwardly angry. Are men more inwardly? Like when they come to you, do they generally like blame themselves more? Okay.
Yeah, and also because this has been a theme. That women left them blaming them.
Oh, so it's like internalized from their past relationships.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, people blaming, like, again, outwardly, like at the end of a relationship, like not being able to own for yourself the inward experience of why you're leaving someone or why you feel like you have to leave. Blaming them is a way of still giving them opportunity to make it up to you, or distancing, or like, you know, cutting someone down, feeling so ignored in a relationship. So you're finally saying like, well, this is how small you are. So people will come to me, mainly men, and they will feel guilt, and the questions that they'll have is like, a woman said I was this. Am I? Or really recognizing that they didn't show up, and really being able to admit that, really seeing where they checked out. They didn't understand what was happening. And I've heard this a lot with guys, like women will be like, why? You know, like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? And I think guys are so not used to expressing it that they just shut it down. So like, they're not really thinking through why it's happening. Their behavior just changes. And in retrospect, they can see that and they want to understand it. So they're coming to me really more invested in the education of, you know, an action plan, but also like, I don't want this to happen again. I don't want to see a woman cry to this extent. I don't want to see that I cheated and, you know, whatever it is. I don't want to end up in this place. I think men, you know, personalize failure or rejection in a different way, in a way that, you know, makes them want to overcome and be kind of a changed man faster than I think that women that maybe identify more with the story and the problem. And I don't know, it's because I think that we're more outwardly focused. We don't use breakup as much to like be a self-development journey and be like, okay, like how am I going to come into it the next time that, you know, that I can inspire love in someone so they don't, or, you know, devotion or you know, honesty or presence, that they don't go and distract themselves elsewhere. We don't like look at that as much and take that project on. We take the project on of finding another man. It's
right.
just, it's
get the rebound.
Yeah, like no other. I mean, it really makes my mind, like my head spin completely.
Yeah.
To see him.
So how do people, and do you see a difference between men and women in this kind of, so like when it is near the end of the relationship, I assume you see kind of what we were talking before, which is a battle around like, how selfish should I be? Right? Like in a relationship, especially if there are kids involved, do you see a difference between men and women around like how they think about a potential breakup and how that would look like in society, with their friends, with their family? Like, I feel like a lot of people, and maybe not on the coast as much. Like I'm pulling this from like a Midwestern sensibility, which is like married young, you stay with your person, you have kids early. But like, at what point is it selfish to leave? But then at what point is it good for the breakup to happen? And obviously it would change based on the person or the situation.
Sometimes I think it's like, you also have to look at, not is it selfish to leave, but is it selfish for people to stay? I think that men can check out in a relationship in ways
Yeah.
And kind of
clear your brain. Go full blank. You're like, oh, she's mad again. All right, cool. Let me just like zone out.
And then they just walk around like that. And you're on dates. They're not even
mode,
there.
Yep. And I think every guy's been in a relationship where
they've done
happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because, at least with mine, where it was like, it isn't worth fighting. Because it's just like, whatever I say is not gonna go well for me.
Gonna be received.
So yeah, it's better because they can't get mad if you don't do anything. It's kind of the thinking, but that's what boils. That's what like festers.
That's what makes me leap out of my skin. That's what made me jump across the room.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes women leave.
Yeah.
So I think then it's like, is it selfish to stay? Is it selfish to inspire rage in someone,
Right?
Like to get someone to that degree. So I think, I think it's selfish to stay degrees, and we have to like look at that. Sometimes like I've heard people. I'm so fascinated by this. Like people say that they will stay in a relationship until they have eyes for someone else. Like the mere possibility of that will be the fuel they need to leave. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It seems so fucking dishonest that like I think I really wish I could like inspire in the sense, maybe like narcissistic, inspire more of a movement in the sense, but like I just think it's so dishonest to do that I could never. I can't believe people do that. That's like the worst thing to bring into love, and it creates suspicion going forward. Like if I know, even if you didn't cheat on me, but I knew that right after we broke up and I thought I was in this, year and a half relationship, 3-year relationship with you, and 2 months later, even let's just say 2 months, you're with someone else. I mean,
in a serious way.
Yeah, it would, like, I guess posting about it, whatever people do,
right?
Where I just knew that like, wow, he's really in love again, and I know that happens for people. I get it, but it's also like, where's the processing that anyone does anymore about someone else? Yeah. Where's the reflecting? Like, I think it's, and listen, I've been in places where I have been with people quickly after, but it's kind of nauseating to think. It's kind of like you were sexually with someone's body for so long, and then like that, you can just go be with someone else. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think there's kind of, like, I think there's two ways to kind of look at it. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree, because I'm more on your side. Like, after I have a serious relationship, I don't jump into anything quickly. It's like at least 6 months before I start seeing anyone seriously. But I think a lot of people really struggle with the idea of being alone. Yeah. And so it's exactly what you're saying, which is it's dishonest because they're mentally checked out. But to that same point, the other side of that coin is that in their mind, maybe they're doing the processing while they're still in the relationship, and they're just like, so your point was that after the breakup, they should have time to like process what happened in that relationship before they moved on to the other one. And I think a lot of them would say, whether it's accurate or not, that, oh, the last like 4 months I've been processing that last relationship, and now I'm ready for another relationship, even though I've been in that relationship. Like, what happens when someone tells you that?
I was that person, and I remember always thinking that, like, no wonder I was crying to the extent that I was crying. I was grieving the loss of the relationship and the love and falling out of the illusion of it while I was in relationships. This is what made me like a breakup coach, wanting to be someone that could do that, because I can't imagine someone witnessing that. Me out loud, basically even processing out loud to these guys that I was going to leave them, or whatever, or my dissatisfaction, or the tears, and them, never asking, or me never acknowledging why I was crying, because I was processing that I was going to leave. And then I would be in another relationship, soon after, like, and it would be another long relationship, and I would always be able to justify it because I had, processed it before, and this was the next person was long distance, so I felt like it was fated. They found me. I didn't go looking for it. And so I think that there's reality
That's a good point, though. It's like, oh no, I wasn't looking. They just found me, and like, oh, I'm supposed to say no to this.
Yes. I mean,
exactly.
God orchestrated this. Who would I be to do? That would be
You're right.
Exactly. So, and I think that the thing is that by doing those things, you have to again, look further out, and maybe it's happened for people where they have done that and they've gone into something else. I think. When I did that, at least, I was always reacting to the last person in the last relationship. So I wanted to do it again, kind of a similar relationship, but I would just do it better. And the reality was that dynamic was done. It was expired. Mm-hmm. I needed to outgrow the dynamic. And I think sometimes when you process and then go into the next one, you're replacing it more.
Yes.
You're not, it's just you're reaching to the next, the thing that logically makes sense next or is there and available, and you're just going to do it better.
Yeah.
But it becomes about the last person and who you were then instead of who you're going to become.
Yes.
And so I think that's the encouragement I would have about why still there's some value in pausing. And even if you're processing with someone, it's different to process with someone and then be alone and be processing without any options.
Yeah.
It's very, very different to remove the options. I mean, I remember when I would break up and you're dating again, you're getting validation. What does it look like? Because it's so easy with dating apps now too.
Oh my God.
To never really be
It's
of
you get a date within 20 minutes.
Right.
Especially in New York.
Or just chat with people and get validation.
Yeah.
Or just have your pictures being looked at by this person. Look what it says about me.
Right. Ooh, that person's hot and they think I'm attractive, which means that I must be attractive.
And look
it
what
feels
their degrees
good.
are.
Yeah.
Look what I could have,
Right.
But
turns out they're a serial killer. Every time.
Or they're in a relationship.
Or
they would cancel the date with me hours before.
Oh, that is the worst. That is an automatic no, I'm not. Because every time they're like, can we reschedule? I feel so bad. I'm like, fuck no. No, that is not the foot we are starting on.
It's also I cannot believe how people do that when they'll say I feel so bad, and it seems so sincere. I don't want you to have this impression of me. I had a guy that did that.
Yep.
But it's because of work, and it's in California. This whole thing. And it's wow, they really don't want me to think bad of them. But then they never reschedule the date. So it's a double shock. It's why not just own? I remember one guy circling back and being I'm obviously not in a good place. And he went through this thing I really don't think I should be dating. Maybe it was a lie, but it seemed more he was removing himself as an option rather than delaying the inevitable, which was going to be that they don't want to see you.
Yeah.
It's just there's no rescheduling going to be going on. Let's not lie to ourselves.
Right. And if there is, great. I actually had something like that happen this last summer. It was someone on a dating app went on one date. It was good, nothing crazy. And we were trying to set up a second date. And she was just look, I'm going to be honest with you. I am overwhelmed by life right now.
Yeah.
So I'll text you if I ever
if and when.
Yeah. Right. And 2 months went by and she actually texted me back.
That
and it's
stuff.
It didn't work out, but I was you know what? I appreciate the honesty of just I'm overwhelmed right now. I can't handle the idea of, and it's not me or anything like that.
That's selfish in a good way.
Right.
And it also, what I love about that is because it doesn't spoil the possibility. If someone keeps on they're being run thin in life, they're spread thin, whatever. I can't say these things. It's just crazy. I just don't use phrases that are used. And even when I try to, it's so
no, be unique. That's why people listen to your podcast.
Oh my God. That was my superlative, by the way. Most unique.
There you go.
It wasn't even most because we had to be so unique, so it was just unique.
I won in 6th grade. I won an award for being the most creative person in my class.
Really?
I have no idea how. I was not an artsy kid. I think it was weird, and they just needed to put some
creative
word on it.
People say that to me. I'm I don't know. I don't think I've always felt so weird about the word creative for me. Huh. I can never claim it. A creative writing program. I cannot call what I was in. Yeah. I'm I did nonfiction writing. I can't call it. Don't think that I'm this artsy person. But yet people, I think what they see as an individual, they call creative.
Yeah.
And then we feel like we have this label that we have to be like a painter or like, you
Yeah.
know, or really like, and I'm just,
I think it just means they don't understand how we get to the thoughts that we get to.
yeah.
So I think one last thing on the moving on relationships quickly. I think also, and I want your opinion on this theory, that people kind of feel like after a long relationship, they've diagnosed what they thought was wrong with the relationship, and they think, now I know what I want. Because this was wrong, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. And so this next one, I think a lot of people feel very confident that the next person that they date, they know exactly what they want. And I don't think anyone ever really does. And I guess I've actually told this on the podcast before, but it's been a while. One of the things my mom said to me after she got divorced for the second time was that after she dated my dad, her thought in finding another partner was like, oh, well, this obviously didn't work with your dad talking to me. And so I went 180 degrees the other way.
It was a reaction to the last person.
It was a reaction to the last person.
She overcorrected.
And so what she said, and what she has said with the third husband who she's still with, is that I didn't need to go 180 degrees away from your dad. I needed to go like 10 degrees away from your dad, because she was still with my dad for 13 years. Like, obviously it wasn't a complete train wreck for the entire thing. Just like a few things went wrong and she needed to shift a little bit. And that actually has stuck with me as like, don't be reactionary after a breakup, because odds are it's going to go worse the next time. Like, if the relationship lasted a year, then like the odds of the opposite type of person working better for you it's almost zero, because you're not 100% wrong in whatever relationship that you have.
Yeah, I mean, that is always like, that's been my theory. And that's why I was saying, don't be reactionary, and that you kind of want to just like fall into them. If it was a pendulum or what, like, get centered with yourself. Yeah. And I think that even what I noticed I was doing it's been in my 30s, and it was after I broke up with my ex, is that I think I did look at it as I was so ashamed of myself and my past relationships, and was like, oh, I should have never been with that. I should never have been with.
There are people that you do that it's like okay to think that with. Not you, but like some people where they look back and they're like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I was addicted to heroin. And
right.
That's why.
Right. That's how they showed
That's
up.
why that happened.
That's what they were supplying.
Okay.
That's what they're supplying.
That one, that's my bad. I gotta, I gotta
But
not
like
do
people
heroin.
that
and
I
won't do it
was
again.
in love with, I think I have to look, and you're right, like there was a part of them, they were the people I was choosing to see me in the off hours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, and when I started dating, I started being like, I'm going to have the exact opposite of what I've dated. I'm ready to get married. The man I marry and choose to spend my life with is going to look nothing like the guys I dated.
He wakes up at 6 a.m.
Yes.
He fucking tends to the chickens on our
Yeah.
farm. Like,
He goes out and he makes money.
yeah. Not only
does
does he make money, he also makes dinner.
Right? Oh my God, they have to cook. They have to cook. Oh my God, totally in my fantasy. Like, I'm barely doing anything. But then I'm like, oh my, but that's what's crazy. It's like, that's also what's crazy. It's like, I've thought that, and those are the people that can't handle me either.
Yeah.
Like, they really don't honor who I am.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, so I agree with what your mom is saying, 100%.
There's the whole thing is like, oh, opposites attract. And like, there is something to, I feel, having balance, having like a little bit of difference in personality. But if your lifestyles are totally different, it's just like, you can't.
I think that's how you feel, like,
it's
so
not sustainable.
Well, you just feel unnatural.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, I cannot imagine. I can't even have roommates. I've never had roommates. Like, I can't imagine.
I joke about that all the time. I was like, I don't think I could ever live with someone again. I think I'm gonna need like a guest house for my wife and kids.
I know, and kids. It's
Oh my
so
god,
bad. It's
I haven't
like
cleaned anything that I didn't make a mess for in 2 years.
I know.
I don't know. I don't even think I could get a pet at this
It's horrible.
point.
It's like, it's so much like I have to protect my energy. And it's like as if what I'm working on in life is so important.
Yeah.
There's a part of me, but like, wouldn't that be the dream in a way? It's like everyone has like their cave. And like you go in and you explore, and then we have like this amazing intimacy between us in this other time. And we want that, and we're like devoted to that because it empowers us, and it's like a release from our other things. But like there's something else that we're both working on that has our attention too.
Yeah.
I would love that.
It's tough for, I think, driven people because they obviously can't be like held down, but driven people are generally attracted to other driven people, and I think it clashes sometimes in terms of like, how do you make time for someone else when you're both super busy?
Yeah, see, and I just like, and that's so much of New York too.
Yeah.
And I just find there's nothing less attractive to me than that either.
Yeah.
You know, in a place that's like full of busyness and like, you know, the achievement oriented culture, I think like there's nothing better than being someone that can show up for someone. That to me is like, and I think like that's been what I've really recognized like guys walk away with me actually. They're always just like about how much presence I have, and that when I'm giving attention and when I'm with someone, like they're the only person that exists. And a lot of people don't offer that to someone.
It's a great skill to have.
Yeah.
I don't think almost anybody
Yeah.
in general, I mean, even people that have been with significant others for a long time are like, you know, you're with someone for a couple of years and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, they're doing this again,
They're
whatever.
not
I've heard this story,
like,
and it's
I really want this. Is like I want to be able to like continuously, you know, be surprised by the person or find reasons to be fascinated. I want to be like up on life, you
Right.
know, like I feel that in my single life, always, constantly. My whole life has been, you know, guided by those interactions and that enthusiasm really for the world. And I hope that I can bring that in a, you know, extended and sustainable way in my romantic relationships. Like, I really hope it doesn't get old,
yeah.
you know?
Well, so one of my favorite like psychological studies is on relationships and like how long they'll last. So it's like a longitudinal study that studied couples over, you know, I think it was like 30, 50 years, a significant amount of time. And the researcher had this hypothesis, and it turned out that he was about like 85 to 90% correct. Mm-hmm. And his hypothesis was that couples that look at the bird, is the phrase he used, couples that look at the bird stay together. So what he was having them do was he would like track these couples, and when one piece of the couple, the male or the man or woman, was looking at something that they thought was interesting, like they were looking at a bird out the window, and they suggested, hey, come look at this bird. If their partner reciprocated that excitement, mm-hmm. they stayed together almost 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. The people that fell apart almost to like a perfect accuracy were the ones where someone would say, oh my God, this bird is so pretty, come look at it, and they would get rejected. Mm-hmm. Their partner wouldn't come look at it. They would think, oh, I'm busy, I can't mm-hmm. do that right now. It's like the people that stay together are the ones that, and obviously there's a limit. If someone's doing that every 15 fucking minutes, then like you can't. But when they try to bring excitement into the relationship, if the partner receives it, then generally they stay together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Oh my God.
It's so easy to forget in those long relationships, though, that like you have to keep doing that.
Yeah, it's a choice.
It's so easy to do that in the
choose each
beginning of a
other.
relationship
Yeah,
because the person's so interesting, and it's like 3 years in, you want to be like, it's the same fucking cardinal we saw 2 days ago.
Yeah.
but like you have to, like, if they are interested in it, you have to be interested in
it's
it.
A practice. You know, it's so funny is my parents, you know, started the relationship as bird watchers. So I'm dying, and they're still fucking together. But my dad. And
this is the key. Get into birds, and your relationships will last forever.
But also, I have to be honest about this. Is like the question has always been like, because I told them if they divorced, I'd kill myself. And now I'm a breakup coach. So the question has been like, and I'm single, is it like they stay together? And I think that my dad has this enthusiasm for life. It's where I get it from. Like, and he's always, come look at what I'm doing, everything. Like when we're in a car, it's just always looking at this thing. And my mom
Cows,
totally
horses,
checked out, you know, and I think in the beginning, she was into it, and I think that she checked out and no longer was looking. And my sister and I had to be the ones that looked with him, and it can be exhausting.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, I will say, my dad still talks about this one ex of mine that, you know, I'm best friends with now, and he's my dad. They're so similar. And when I was with him, we still have that together. And it's just like we're turned on by life in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think it's why we can be friends after. And it's why with him, like to this day, I just feel like the way that we live life together, it's like this romantic journey. I love it. And I think it really worked, that relationship. And I was in a dark place then, and he really showed up for me, and it still worked, you know? And I think you're right. I think you gotta want to see that same bird. But you're right, like I don't know. Maybe,
it's hard to do.
But I think it can be done.
Yeah. So being friends with a significant other afterwards, I want to ask about that.
Yeah.
How do you do it? I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, if a relationship is over, that to me is, that's kind of it. I've only ever had one relationship where I kind of stayed friends with them, but it was because we were roommates. Like it was a necessary, like if we didn't live in the same place for a while, then I don't know if we would have been able to stay friends like we did. Are there pieces of a relationship or pieces of a breakup that you can kind of look at and see like, okay, this is what's preventing someone from staying friends with their partner? Obviously, like extenuating circumstances, like if someone's abusive, like
yeah, of course,
you don't. I'm not necessarily talking about that type of scenario. And then, is there a difference between like men and women? Like, do you see men and or women wanting to stay friends with their exes more often than the other?
I think when I, hear other people talk about wanting to stay friends, and they'll do it with people that they've been dating a month. And
you were never more than friends.
You weren't even, no, let's get this straight. You weren't even friends.
Right. You were like
weren't
barely
even
acquaintances at that point.
Like the problem was you only dated a month because you didn't even get to a friendship level. And people will say, "Oh, I want to be friends," because they still want to be a possibility.
Okay.
I think that in terms like of a relationship that, people had that friendship, they had developed that. Like if that part was there, and so there was respect for who that person is, not just what you were getting from them sexually. Like sometimes we get things, sexually, people don't even realize they're getting their meals paid for, so they love them for that.
Yeah, right.
If it's no longer convenient to have them in your life and it was therefore unconditional, it wasn't based on the conditions. I think that there's a way of coming back into each other's life, maybe when you've been able to put the attraction to the side and kind of evolve beyond it. And I think you can really develop a friendship with someone and not feel threatened by them dating other people or having experiences like that. And the fact that, they're not choosing you. You have to be okay with like, if you're developing this friendship and then you go home and you talk to your friends about, oh my God, they haven't expressed desire. I haven't seen that they want to kiss me. They're not trying to spend the night. It's like, it's like, make sure, like check your intentions. And I think that, friendship is possible if it was unconditional to begin with. Sometimes you find out just for one person or the other, that it was conditional, and if you're not theirs, they're so offended by that, and they're a type of person that never evolves beyond that, unfortunately. It's a kind of, I think that's kind of like the spiritual journey after a breakup, and within people in their life, or the development journey of self-development. If you look at, relationships and just trying to be like the best person you can be, and showing up in the most honest way, and really not taking people for granted, and, appreciating what you're creating with people, you can look at the end of it, and you can, value them, value what it was, and therefore take the ego out of it. So you could have a friendship with them afterwards. Now, that all
You're
said,
saying I'm the problem?
Yeah. No, but then at the same time, I've asked for myself, like, am I someone that really does that? I have done that. I would be willing to do that with men that have been in past relationships with me. But when I date someone, for example, the guy in LA that I went and saw, really realize that there's no way. I mean, there's no way that, but I feel that way, that like realistically we would be good partners for each other. And yet we had this bond of just speaking for 6 months. I mean, he really was present for me, asked me the best sort of questions. I really evolved in this time. And I feel kind of selfish, like I gained all that and I've cut this person off. I can cut this person off. And he wants to, reflect or, acknowledge what we created with each other, which is so real. Yeah. It's like, why can't I just continue that with him? Why can't I just continue to be present and help him in the ways that he wants help from me too? But it's like, I don't know. I don't know if like a friendship, like, but if there's any chance that it's going into romantic territory and we're romanticizing that, I feel like that will be a distraction. So I don't know.
Interesting.
It's sometimes, so I guess right now it's hard to separate because it was so, even if it was long distance and we didn't get to be sexual in all the ways I had hoped for reasons maybe I won't discuss here, there was so many sexual undertones. So just to be friends right now, it's kind of like, I don't know.
It's like a tease.
And it's like, I am such a tease. It's like, and it's like, I don't want that with people. It feels dishonest to a certain degree. To play into that, like if this guy wants, and I would understand why he would want them, more of my cinematic nudes, I totally get why he would want those. And I love being able to take those photos. I have so much fun with it. But is that giving to someone that I shouldn't give to in that way? Okay. Should I go find a better like partner? Should I have to like check in with myself. I give a lot. I love giving. But like I gotta be selective who I give to, man. Not everyone.
You gotta find where you need to be selfish.
Where do I draw the line? Like, and I stop teasing. It's like, let me go tease someone else now. And then, but like, if you didn't, there's some great quote is like, people will basically like almost triumph around people they find rare. These rare people.
Yes.
But then when they're with them, they won't know how to treat them. And that's where they'll lose them.
Yeah.
And I feel that. I feel like there's a lot of fucking talk about rare. And, oh my God, you have this presence. And I haven't, all this stuff, all the ways I've developed myself. But if you drop the ball around that, it's done.
Yeah.
And it might not be maybe won't treat you well. I won't ignore you. I won't abandon you. I'll still show up for you. But you're not going to get the rare qualities anymore because that's abusive to myself. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because you have limitations and you wish you were better and in time, but I don't have that time anymore.
Right.
I'm looking for people that match me now. And we don't have to rush into things and we don't have to, but people that match me now. And if you don't see me and you can't treat me like I can show up and treat you, I'm on to the next. I don't have time for it. I have to be treating myself better than that. So that's where I'm at.
We are right back where we started at the beginning. Good. I think that was awesome. So we've got like 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
I think if people want to hear more of like this sort of stuff, what's your podcast called?
Yeah, it's called Thank You Heartbreak.
Thank You Heartbreak. Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Yeah.
You on YouTube?
I'm going to be.
Okay.
I'm going to overcome my fears.
Soon on YouTube.
Yeah.
Instagram is Thank You Heartbreak.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Queen of Hearts.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, for my regular listeners, Chelsea and I know each other because we were on a dating show podcast called The Queen of Hearts. And I'm gonna throw this out from the beginning. We haven't gotten the chance to listen to it yet.
Yeah.
So this is gonna come out like right when that drops.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully listeners from that podcast are coming to like hear more about us and like
Our dynamic, maybe,
yeah, our dynamic. But I wanted to like talk about the experience of doing the show and then like all that, because it was a fascinating experience.
Yeah, it was.
Like, let's, at least from my end, let's start. The first two conversations I had with producers, I didn't realize they were going to use those clips they could use in the show. I thought those were just like regular interviews, like, oh, they're just checking, they're like chatting with me, all this other stuff. And then I find out from you that there's like a whole part of the show that I wasn't included in, and they were using clips from those first two podcasts. And obviously I gave them permission to use those clips. It's not like they stole them or anything.
I'm wondering, like, did
But
we? I have
like,
no
well,
idea if we did or not.
That contract we signed was pretty big.
Right, that's where you don't read the fine print.
I actually tried to read the fine print,
Oh
and
my
I was
God,
like,
I don't.
but I didn't realize, and it was more like, it was just kind of funny. I was like, because again, we haven't heard it. I still have no idea what was said.
And because I blacked out and was so present that I blacked out, I can't remind you of any of it. All I know is that I too
Could be surprised to both of us.
wasn't aware that was happening in a way, but at the same time, this is what I've tried to like get good at, is you go into situations and being honest and really showing. And I think that's even why we got selected, is I've wanted to be on reality TV since I was a kid. And I feel like, and now I've had MTV called me last Friday.
No shit. Yeah, congratulations.
So I'm closer than I've ever been. And why I realize that like I feel like I'm being on things like Queen of Hearts is that I know how to show like I'm dynamic. I can speak out of both sides of myself, and there's an honesty and there's an allowance of revealing yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that both of us, all of us, they're on there, we were chosen because we were willing to reveal, real moments, and we weren't orchestrating things.
Like the sex quiz that was 85 pages long. It was so...
I love how we said pages, because it wasn't questions, it was pages.
It was pages. It took 50 minutes to fill out like my entire sexual history, every weird thing that's ever happened to me, like all this stuff, every weird thing I've ever thought about, every fantasy, all this other stuff. And also, if my parents are listening to this, they are not allowed to listen to the Queen of Hearts podcast until I give them express written consent, because I don't know what they're going to use. So
yeah, they will never look at you the same, for sure.
They're not all. If they could read that sheet, they're going to disown me.
And when you hear our voices and you like think about these scenes where we're saying talking about our life and what was done to us or what we did, it is crazy because you just hear these voices and it's like, who is this person? It's like, oh my God, that's you. And it's like, what do you think about yourself? And that was the craziest thing about it. It's so fucking revealing in the perception that we put out there. And these moments of our lives, like, what does it say about us? And obviously things were chosen, they selected these moments.
Right.
But so on their own, I could see where, wow, it really... you can want to fire back. That's not all of me, but it is a part of me, and we said it.
Yeah, we did. We went for it, but you kind of like, to your point, you kind of just have to like go for it and hope that it works out, and it did for both of us. So, I think. Everybody who doesn't want spoilers, go listen to the episode now. It's called The Queen of Hearts with Jujubee. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Wondery, like every podcast platform. But I ended up winning. I don't know. How do you I was
the selected
you
one?
Chose me, right? You chose me.
He's
out of
the chosen
three.
one. Wow,
I am
the chosen one.
I am
Wow.
I am the Queen of Hearts. No, but it was really just going in blind after the first segment. there was only two of us, and I was like, I don't know what was said. But then the host, Jujubee from RuPaul's Drag Race, was just like, here's a question, now tell a story. And it was like, oh, I just gotta fucking go for it, I guess. Like, I've literally told like the story that I told, which was about the Nutella.
Yeah.
I had told maybe 3 other people in my life that story.
Oh my God.
Like,
It's such a
but
good
I was.
story.
It is a good
You
story,
should
but
lead
it just
with it. You
had
should lead
never
with
come
it.
up. Yeah, should
It's
I put it
also-
on my Hinge profile of
Oh
like,
my
ask
God.
me about my
just because
Nutella
Nutella
story?
is just like, you know, my crazy, not even guilty, my craziest pleasure. Like, it was wild.
Is that why I won?
Yeah, but it was so good where I thought that you were maybe making it up.
No, that
but
was 100% true.
And I was just like, just in the event that he's not making it up, it's so me. That is what was crazy, because I was such in a place in my life because of the LA guy and long distance of like the fantasies, really being in it, but he was really like guiding it. And then there was you that would have these fantasies where I was like, oh, that's like me. Whereas like I think being more over, I don't know, it's crazy like where we're at in our lives too when we said yes to this show. And I think that informed a lot of what we brought into it and kind of.
Well, you know what's funny with that show is that the producers never actually reached out to me. They reached out to one of my friends who like had a video go kind of viral on TikTok, like, you know, 50,000 views or whatever. And the producers found him and they actually asked him if he wanted to be on the show. And he said, I am in a long-term relationship. I don't think that would I don't think I could get away with it, but
get away with it.
here's 3 other people that I think would be good. And he gave me, and then
what a compliment.
I know, right?
See, he didn't chase. You attracted that.
Right. So
that's so cool.
It is, but it was also like that was part of the reason I didn't realize like those first interviews were going to be used on the show, because I had they didn't reach out to me. They were like, "Hey, Chris referred you. We'd love to chat." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
I just thought it was an audition.
I thought,
or like an interview. Like they were trying to see.
Yes.
Like they're just trying to. You know,
I thought they were making sure like this guy's friend isn't crazy. I didn't realize they were like, oh, we're gonna use this audio.
I don't even think any of it. Like sometimes it's like not even that it was great. Like it's just as when anything's selected on its own and you're hearing it, just like you're just hearing something that you've said. Like it's dramatic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everything that was like played, it felt dramatic.
Yes.
I don't.
It was and it was
because
it's
it was
good
because
podcasting.
it felt like private.
Right.
It felt private.
It did. It is a
because
weird thing for you to say. It did.
Because you couldn't see us too. It was just like something like it felt very like it commanded like presence. It was just like you were right there with it.
Yeah.
It was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
I thought, and it really made me think afterwards. After it was all said and done, it really made me think about myself and how I choose. And also, like I will say, it was kind of crazy to think that like the show wasn't a setup, and also like I think that they did do a good like job choosing. Like it's kind of crazy what I told them, and maybe it like. You are a good choice, I would say.
Thank you.
I would say, like, I think that it's like, in terms of logic and all that, like, very, very good and compelling. Like to me, like, wow. I said that I was a long distance addict, and they literally found a guy that lives like 2 streets away.
6 minutes.
And on our date, like we were following each other.
I know, like, that was really awkward.
Like literally on the date, like it couldn't have gotten closer.
No.
And
no, it got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna go a different direction than this woman, because
I went a different direction. You did.
You were ahead of me though.
And then
you turned, and I was like,
I went a different direction.
Okay. We were both thinking the same thing, because I wasn't sure if it was you. I was like, I'm pretty sure that'd be real awkward if we both
back to the point of like, I don't know people's names on dates.
Yeah.
I didn't know really what you looked like. I didn't register. I didn't look at pictures. I didn't even know who I was going to see.
All we had was Instagram. It was kind of like.
But I didn't even like. I don't look into things. It's kind of crazy. Like I didn't want to look into anything. Like I honestly can tell you, like I looked back at you and I didn't know. I was like, oh. I never see blondes in New York. I didn't even register. And then you were so close to me that I was like, is this him? Like, he was a blonde. Like, is it, he's tall. Like, I didn't even know what you looked like. I couldn't remember.
Hey, but it's not a bad way to go through life, right? Like, it was more, as long as you were able to recognize me when you pulled up to the speakeasy. So for anyone interested, we went to Lennox, which is a speakeasy underneath one of the subway stations in New York, and then we went to a wine bar and talked with the weird little bartender for like an hour and a half. She was a very interesting person.
Oh my God. She was. I can still remember some things she said.
She was, I mean, she let us try like 8 different types of wine before she started getting annoyed.
No, I don't think she was ever annoyed, but I really realized how I can't just order wine anymore. Oh, no. I have like only 2 that I love at some place, and that's all I can drink. Nothing. Yeah, I don't like wine. But yeah, that was fun.
But yeah.
I remember thinking really fast when I was there with you. I remember thinking to myself, if the guy that I meet in LA can't carry a conversation like this, I can't see him in the future. And I remember really thinking that, and he didn't. And I remember thinking, just like you were like a guiding post or something, like a reference point.
A bar.
Yeah, a bar, okay. For sure. Like if the guy I go meet can't have a conversation like this on a date, then it's not worth it that he just sends me really great messages. You know, like, but that was really hard for me to do. That was really, really hard for me to do.
That's legit. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm honored. I knew going into it just from, I think maybe it's because you got vetted by producers. I was like, there's no way this isn't an interesting date. Like that's my biggest pet peeves on dates. And like we were saying before, we're in New York, you got dating apps. It's not hard to get a date. When someone is not interesting or they don't want to put the effort in or any of that, like that's worse than like a really bad date where you just don't get along. Because at least I can appreciate a different type of viewpoint if someone that I just don't agree with is there.
Right.
But I was pretty confident going into the date that it was going to at least be an interesting conversation. And it was. I had a great time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it blows my mind though that people wouldn't they want someone. How are you not sitting down with people and being like animate? Like I don't understand.
I don't know.
People are dead inside.
Nervous.
No, I know they're
nervous.
I'm saying they're dead inside. No,
I'm a little more forgiving of people than Chelsea is.
So like
they're dead. They should just kill themselves. They're a waste of life. They're a waste of oxygen.
I have so much compassion for it outside of dating.
I thought they were nervous.
I know. I just I can't massage personality out of people.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like
it's
the
hard
nerves.
To do.
And
But anyway, thank you for doing this.
Yes, of course.
Like we did the one podcast together and now like we've hung out for a couple hours. You've done my podcast. Like I'd love to have you back on sometime, but I gotta go. I got 2 shows up in Midtown tonight. Guy. Yeah, right. Plug what you have again. Where can people find you? I'll put it in the show notes as well. But
just the podcast is Thank You Heartbreak, thankyouheartbreak.com, breakupward.com, Instagram is Thank You Heartbreak, and my name is Chelsea Lee Trescott, and my email is breakupward@icloud.com. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So if you're looking to dump someone or you're looking to hear a podcast.
Yeah, or save your relationship
or
save
yourself. Your relationship.
Yeah. No, it's
she could do it all for you.
Everything.
Name someone who's not in one of those 3 scenarios.
Right,
you can't.
right.
Everyone is.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We'll do another one soon.
Perfect.